You'll hear me okay? Wait.
No, we're good. It's always, of course, we understood.
How about now? That work better? All right. Okay.
All righty, sir. So you are going to be our last candidate on the mic. John
Okay.
just gave you a bottle of water if you need it.
All right. Well, good deal.
So we open these up. You got 3 to 5 minutes. Introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself and why you're running.
Okay. Well, my name's Jim Norred. I'm running for state representative for District 71. Was born in Natchitoches, Louisiana. My parents are from North Louisiana. Moved to Baton Rouge when I was 9. Grew up just across the river in River Oaks subdivision off Florida Boulevard. We did most of our shopping here in Denham Springs growing up. In fact, I used to go to the Carroll Theater all the time on the weekends. So I'm very familiar with Denham Springs. Then 30 years ago, I moved to Livingston Parish, and I've been here ever since. I'm a product of public education. I went to Broadmoor High School. Don't hold it against me. We didn't play Denham back then or anything. My kids and my grandkids all went to public schools here in Livingston Parish, and I'm a very strong advocate of education. That's one of the main drivers for this parish. We are what they call a bedroom community, our parish, and education is one of the things that attracts people to come here on that. So that is our bread and butter for the time being. It's one of the main things we've got to keep going. I'll talk about that in a little bit later. I am a Christian, presently going to Revival Temple Church on that. I'm a widow, but I am engaged, and my lovely fiance is over here in the back. She's trying to hide. But so I'm excited about that. The Lord blessed me twice with 2 good women in my life on that. Yeah, I live down off of Johnson Road, off of Highway 16. Growing up, went to LSU. I went my freshman year to Southeastern, played football, and decided that wasn't the right thing, and so I went to LSU, got a bachelor's degree. Later on, fast forward, I decided I wanted to serve my country and my community, so I enlisted in the Army National Guard at the age of 31, and my wife thought I was crazy, but she let me do it and put up with it, and I stayed in the Army National Guard for the next 9 years, went through Desert Storm. We were activated, but fortunately, the regular active duty military did such a good job, we didn't have to leave the United States. We did stay on duty for a while, though, on that. So then I decided later on, I was fussing and complaining about something was going on in the parish, and my wife said, well, instead of complaining about it, why don't you do something about it? So I ran for parish council and won. So then I had to figure out what to do and how to do it. And it was a learning experience. I saw a lot of how the inner workings of the parish go on. During that time, I also went to Washington and worked with the congressional delegations that we had up there, as well as the state legislatures. Dale Erdy and Rogers Pope and Valerie Hodges, worked with them, got familiar with them, and helped get bills through with them as well on that. So I kind of got a well-rounded idea of what to do on that. And during this time, my business career was did project management and system design on large computer systems for state governments. And then what that means is like the Division of Medicaid, they're going to upgrade their computer system for eligibility enrollment or for claims payments and claims processing and stuff. And so I helped set that up and set the project up, got on schedule like you heard some of the other ones talking about. The delegation of task, start dates, end dates, staying within budget, the whole 9 yards, all that. Fall behind, what are you going to do to get ahead of time? Encounter risk, and have to come up with something for risk. I am a project management professional certified. In 1999, I opened my own independent consulting business, and I did that till 2016. And I bounced around for various states. I would go and work remotely sometimes, or travel to and from the states. Went to a lot of different states throughout the country, dealing with the divisions of Medicaid, Blue Cross Blue Shields, Department of Children and Family Services, these types of organizations. Louisiana, for the last 6 years, I went to work for a company called Public Consulting Group, and they had the what's called Independent Verification and Validation project, and that's overseeing the implementation of a new computer upgrade for the state of Louisiana's Medicaid system. In case you don't know, the Medicaid system is the largest portion of the state's budget. on that. There's over right at 1 million people on Medicaid on that. They froze the rolls and didn't question too much when COVID came. They just allowed people to get on the rolls, on the rolls, and on the rolls. Now they'll be going back and trying to clean it up some. But that's a large portion of where your taxes go is to cover that. Medicaid is 75% federally funded and 25% funded by the state. Still comes out to a huge budget, though, on that. Also, another time I decided to get involved in helping my community was after Hurricane Katrina and Rita. Went to work for a company that was putting out all those infamous trailers where people needed housing to get them up off the ground and stuff and all. So we put out 60,000 FEMA trailers throughout the southern part of the state on that. After that, I went to work back doing computer type work, project management again. For the next 5 years, I worked on a project as a consultant for the state's Road Home program, which was a multi-billion-dollar project to get people's homes rebuilt and restored and get their lives back together. Believe it or not, it took 5 years to do that after Katrina and Rita before they finally got things settled out on there. So it was a long road back, but we're making back and we're making progress. Learned a lot about FEMA, learned a lot about community block grants and disasters and what all has to happen during a disaster and stuff. So that's kind of a brief, really quick overview on that. I mentioned education. There'll be 3 points that I would like to mention: education, roads, and flooding. And you've heard about them, so it's nothing new, but education is our driving factor. And the people come here for education. We got some of the best teachers around. We want to keep it that way. They didn't get a pay raise. They're upset. The people are kind of upset. Things didn't work right. We can fix that. I know that the school board's working on it. They're looking at things on that. At the state level, one thing I would bring forth as one of the bills that you're going to ask me about is this past legislative session, they gave the teachers a $1,000 stipend for one time. Well, why just one time? I mean, we had a $2 billion surplus this time. Let's make it permanent. That would be one of the bills I would try to push for, to make it permanent, to at least give them a $1,000 stipend a year. Also, if you want to try to get some kind of a supplemental pay raise like they do for firemen and police and something, I'm not opposed to looking at that as well on that. We got to keep our teachers on that. The flip side that goes with education, you graduate, you don't have a job, you got to go out of the state. So the flip side of that is we've got to bring more businesses in here. We've got to get the kids educated, taught, get rid of the woke stuff, teach them the basics so that they can know how to be a welder, a pipe fitter, an electrician, go to college, become a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. Then we have to have the jobs. So we got to have the base for the jobs for the people to come here, to relocate here. Now, how do we get them here? Once they come here, let's give them a tax break, like other states do. We'll give you tax incentives. We'll help you fund stuff. We'll help with loans if necessary to bring the businesses here, to keep our young people here. As you heard, we're losing population. We're the only state in the South that's losing population. Everybody else is coming to the South, and our kids got to go elsewhere to find jobs on that. Now, that being said, too, let's not forget about our bread and butter. The petrochemical industry has been extremely good to Louisiana. In fact, 70% of all the petrochemical products are produced between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. So that corridor is an economic driving force as well. They need pipe fitters, they need engineers, they need analysts, they need instrument techs, so we have to get these people ready and provide these jobs. Now, we don't have the river like Ascension Parish does, but we can still provide service industries for these. We can have support industries that help create and build valves. We can help repair and work on valves and bring other types of industries and stuff over here to locate here so we can start building our economy and not just something else. When I was on the parish council, we worked and finally finalized and got Juban Crossing up. That's the first time that we've anywhere in the parish that you could buy a coat like this or something. You would have to go across. You would have to go to Hammond, Baton Rouge, or Gonzales to even buy a new watch or a fancy pair of shoes or anything. We need more places like that. We need more shopping centers and all. That's another avenue, another type of business we can look at, expand our base and keep it going and keep our kids here. That's the flip side with education on that. Then we mentioned roads. Our infrastructure is a major issue. Roads and more roads. Okay, you heard some of them mentioned. I totally agree. The extension of Highway 449 to the interstate, that's would be a big help for that area. When I was on the parish council, we allocated funds to extend Juban Crossing all the way to Lockhart to start getting that studies and starting allocating right away and stuff. The parish spent the money elsewhere. The parish president used the funds for something else and didn't get done on that. That's still a viable option. We still need to look at extending Juban all the way to Lockhart. Then you've got a whole nother east-west highway all the way across the part of the parish, all the way into Baton Rouge. You can go all the way across Magnolia Bridge Road into Baton Rouge. You can go all the way back the other way, so why not? That's a no-brainer. Another one that's a no-brainer, which I find hard to believe, 4-H Club Road at Florida Boulevard. If you go there in the mornings or afternoon, you know how bad the traffic backs up. It's a nightmare on that. So the Department of Transportation and Development said they did a study and all like that, and no new subdivisions are going to create any problems, that they're going to have it. But you don't have to study it to death. I mean, you just go there for a week and you can see what the problem is on that. So we've got to put a roundabout there, some other mechanism as well. The next thing with the roads, entrance and exits off the interstates. You've heard them talked about. They talk about them forever. Department of Transportation just loves to study stuff for 2 or 3 years. When I'm elected, we're going to try and change that. We got to change that mentality. You don't have to study something for 2 years to know you have to fix a problem, and then start working on getting the money for it. So that's something we'll try to do. The interstate at Range, getting on and off of there is terrible. There's got to be something fixed for that. You've heard about the 4-H Club Road overpass there. Apparently there's some federal law that says you can't put 2 intersections within a mile apart, but you can possibly put 2 exits where you can at least come off the interstate and get on the 4-H Club Road. We'll look at that. Another no-brainer, where 447 crosses over the interstate in Walker. You go from 4 lanes down to 2 lane to a 2-lane bridge over the interstate. That's something we need to fix, and that's a no-brainer. That shouldn't take long to study that and come up with it. As a representative, as you know, you get elected, you have to pass bills. Well, you submit bills. Well, the bills are submitted to committees on that. Then the committees vote on whether or not to have them go before the full House. If you don't get your bill out of committee, nothing happens. You don't get the funds, you don't get anything. It all dies. There are several committees that, yes, I would like to be on. I'm jumping on some of your questions. The appropriations is obviously one I would love to be on. Yes, it's boring, but that's where you get the money. That's where you find money and can bring money back to this district and to our area on that. So that's where I would like to be on. The Education Committee, what's being taught in our schools? That starts with there. They issue stuff. I'm against this woke stuff. I want to get back to teaching, the basics. When I was growing up, and when most of y'all grew up, y'all were taught how to think for yourselves and how to question things and ask questions and research. We're not doing that now. We're just teaching them to memorize something and you do what I say. We need to get back to teaching them how to research, how to think, and act for themselves on that. So on the Education Committee, you can do that. Going door to door, you'd be amazed how many people ask me, what is a state representative? What do they do? They didn't have civics classes taught when they didn't go. They don't know. Oh, you going to Washington, D.C.? No, I'm going to Baton Rouge, And also then I have to give a brief civics lesson as to how our state government works and what the branches of our state government are. We need to start teaching that again. And this past legislative session, they were supposed to, which the governor signed it, they were going to make civics mandatory again in order to be taught so these people can start learning about that. That's just some of the things that I would do with education. The other quick point I'll make on that, and if I'm talking too fast, just raise your hand or whatever, but flooding. everybody went through the flood of 2016. I remember floods all the way back to 75, 83, 87, and even I think there was one right before 2016, a year or two before that one. And the Amiot River has not been dredged by the Corps of Engineers since the early 1950s. Back then, they dredged it to a uniform depth of 4 feet. In some of those places, it's 6 inches deep now. And you heard Mr. Rivera talking about running aground at the mouth of the river where it runs into Marpole. It's silted in. It's literally, 4 to 6 inches deep with nothing but, and then mud after that. And by the way, if you try to jump off your boat, you sink up to about your chest in the mud on that. We've got to fix all that. We've got to dredge the river and get it back. That's where we drain. That's where everything, all of our creeks drain into the Amiot or to Lake Marpole. And right now they're supposed to be starting to work on dredging the mouth of the river, and they're going to work backwards. But once we get the water to the lake, we've got to dredge some of the lake as well, or build some retention ponds somewhere out there, because the lake is silted in on that as well. So we have to do something to get this water moving. Another project that's been kicked around, which I would be interested in, would be the some so-called weirs, which are little structures that they put out into the river like this and this up in St. Helena Parish, so that the water takes longer to get down, so it doesn't crest as fast down here. That doesn't cost much money. It's not impacting anything. So that's, to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. Why aren't we looking at that? The Comite Diversion Canal, it's a great project, great first step. We got to keep going and we got to build on it. The Amiot River Basin Commission, which is another committee that oversees that, I would like to be on. There's 7 parishes that have come together to work on the watershed initiative and the drainage in these 7 parishes. So East Baton Rouge will be working with Livingston to work on a joint drainage venture, so we don't step in each other's toes, much like what happens with our local drainage districts when they step on each other's toes. So we'll start working to get the whole area, the whole basin of the Amiot River draining on that. So that would be something I would like to be in as well. I mentioned Medicaid. I've got over 20 years experience working with Medicaid, which is the largest part of the budget. I'd like to be on the Special Oversight Committee for the Medicaid on there, as well as the Health and Education, Health and Welfare Committee. So those are several of the committees that are important to this area, and that I think that I can bring some expertise and advice on that. Now, how do you get on committees? All right, you have to go and lobby yourself before the Speaker of the House, because he appoints all the members of the committee on that. So one of the things that has helped me in my business is I'm pretty good at establishing rapport and connections with people. I can interact well most of the time with most people. I find a way to find a common ground and build from that on that. So I would go and I'll have to lobby with him, and hopefully, if I don't get on all of these committees, at least I get on some of them, and then they'll have a direct impact on what I can do directly back to this district on that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
17 minutes. So we still have 13.
Okay.
We do have a question for the audience, from the audience. They dropped it in the bucket earlier. So I'm going to start with that, just in case it takes you 13 minutes to answer. This one is from Mr. Ron Dunham, who I believe is still in the house. Do you believe that the average resident of Livingston Parish is pro-progress or satisfied with the status quo? Why or why not?
I've ran into both. A lot of people, they say, well, my great-grandfather did it this way, and that's how we did it. My grandfather did it this way. My dad did it this way. I want to keep doing it this way. Well, unfortunately, you're getting a huge influx of people now, and you can't do it. It's just not going to be able to do the way you did things, the way your great-grandfather did. So progress is coming. We flip-flop between Ascension and Livingston as being the 2 fastest-growing parishes in the state. You gotta have to plan for it. You can't just stick your head in the sand and say it's going to go away or it's going to stay the way it is on that. So, like it or not, you have to start planning for what's this going to look like in 5 years. What are the roads? What are we going to do in 5 years? What are the subdivisions going to be at? So you're going to have to plan for progress, whether you like it or not.
So it's an interesting point that you bring up when you're talking about what things look like in 5 years. One of the something that Parish President Hopeful Jeff Ard brought up is it's been almost 100 years since we've built a new road. One of the things that Congressman Garrett Graves brings up all the time is Look at what's going on with the Comeet River Diversion Canal, something designed 40 years ago that we're just now getting to build. So the question becomes, as you want to think forward on 5 years, what's the process to actually make things happen from your perspective?
Well, after I'm elected, I'm going to think positive. I will try and get with the parish government, the parish president, and the council. Hopefully they can come up with a plan for which roads they think are the most important that we want to try to get done first. Then it will be my job to go back and try to help secure funding from the state and federal government from that. I'll have to work with the state and then also work with the members of Congress to try to come up with the funds. And Mr. Ard's right. The last parish road was built by the WPA during the Great Depression on that, so it's been a long time. Any other roads that came through are federal roads, the interstates, and then on most of the state highways were also built a long time ago and have just been maintained. So I would try to work with them to come up with a prioritized list. Which roads are the ones we need? Or do we need a new road? Where do we put it? You know, are you talking about an airport? Some people talk about an airport over there close to Satsuma. Do we need some kind of a road to that? Do we need to connect it to the interstate or something like that? That would be the questions I would want them to tell me, and then how we can figure out what to do with the funds and get the funds.
You brought up the Amite River Basin Commission. It is one of one in Louisiana. Can you tell us what you know about it and why you would like to participate?
Well, I'll start with the Comeet Diversion Canal, which you mentioned first. I first heard about that when I was in high school. And yes, it's been a long time coming. So they finally got it up. It's finally getting into operation. And I've heard that, you know, some people have said, yeah, it's going to reduce flooding in Livingston Parish by 3 feet in some parts. And then I've heard as little as 18 inches in other parts. Well, my daughter's home had a foot of water in it, so 18 inches would have saved her, you know, and saved her house. So every little bit helps. Well, is it the stop all for all flooding? No, it's a great start, and we got to build on it. The Amite River Basin Commission, they have the 7 parishes that talk to it. It's St. Helena, Ascension, East Baton Rouge Parish, Livingston, Tangipahoa, and on down some of the other ones, St. John, Iberville even on that as well. And so we'll all be involved in it. And the plans, again, start with dredging the Amite River. We have to do something with the Amite River. Then we've got to worry about all of the debris, I don't want to say leaners and hangers like they talk about in storm terms, but the stumps and the logs and everything that's in the streams, we need to clear them out. That holds up the water. They can't get out as fast. They can't get into the Amite River. So we got to hit. Gray's Creek was one of them, you know, and then the creeks in East Baton Rouge Parish. There's a couple that drain most of East Baton Rouge Parish, and of course it drains into Bayou Manchac and all, and on from there in the Marpole. So it's going to have to take a joint effort, you know, to get it to push the water through and get it out of here on that. And it's going to take some concerted effort and some. Like some people talked about master planners and stuff for zoning and stuff and all like that. We need to get some experts on this committee that are familiar with this and are familiar with the drainage and work towards resolving some of these problems. Did that help you?
Sure. Yeah. You are a former parish councilman. I believe it was District 2, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You brought up your time on the council and some of the things that you were pushing for. One of the things you brought up was Juban North, which actually has initial funding. Of course, there's several years. Yeah. What are some other things that came from your time as a parish councilman and in your effort as you worked with state legislators? What are some things that you would like to see done other than Juban North?
I would like, other than Juban Crossing, which, by the way, contributes to our education fund. Annually, gets around $4.9 million in taxes goes to the education, and other parts of it go to the sheriff's department as well. The parish gets very little tax revenues actually from that one. On that was one of the things I was trying to change, where that the parish could get a little bit into its general fund, but the majority of the money goes either to education or to the sheriff from the taxes on that. The Bass Pro was another example of something that was done like that. Some economic development centers would be great if we could start doing that and working more towards those types of things. It could also bring in smaller businesses, like stores. Like I want to say Dillard's. We had a Dillard's in there. They pulled out on us, but some of the stores like that, department stores and other ones, and there'll be an influx in and out. Then the capital system works. If their business is good, it'll stay. If not, then they'll close and something else will take its place. We got to bring those opportunities into here. While I was on the council, I saw a lot of different things. I learned a lot about how to work with folks and how sometimes you just beat your head against the wall and you have to say, okay, I quit on this one. But some of the things that we did there were we had 4 people drown while I was on the council in 1 year on that, and so kind of a no-brainer making an ordinance to put fences around swimming pools. We didn't have one in place on that, so we put it around there and you get a fine if you didn't have it, if it was a certain type of swimming pool and stuff like that. Some of these things that just common sense just slip through the cracks, and on some of the things that we do. That would be one of the other things. I learned a lot about roads and prioritizing of roads on that as well. Some roads, you say, why are you doing this? But there was a leftover kind of a police jury mentality still prevalent. We used to be on a police jury, and then we have recently gone to the parish council, as where, well, that road's in my district, and we got this much money, so I'm one of 9, so I get a 1/9 of this, and it's going for these roads over here. And so, well, guys, we got to work for the good of the parish here, not just one little section, and stuff. Yeah, I want to take care of District 2 when I was a parish councilman for District 2, but overall, you still got to help take care of the parish. So, you have to kind of, sometimes you might not want to spend any money this year. You give it to Jeff Ard so he can do it in his district, and then next year he'll help you do something else. You have to work to do stuff like that.
We've got about 3 minutes. I'm going to ask you one more question, and then you can wrap up with anything you'd like to say, if that suits you.
Okay.
You said you were a product of the public education system. Mm-hmm. We have a very large school system here. You've already talked about some of the tax dollars it can pull and looking at their budget and that kind of thing. Much of their budget comes from the minimum foundation program, which is legislative. Mm-hmm. In your experience, what would be your plan to A, protect the money that they're currently getting, and B, try to work with them to improve public education in Louisiana?
Well, with the minimum foundation plan, obviously, the funding is coming. We've got a really good school systems here. We want to keep it here. We've also paid some of the highest taxes in the state to keep our school systems and stuff in here. Now, right now, the combined state sales tax and the parish sales tax is at 10.95%. That's almost the highest in the state. It's a 3 or 4 higher. And if you compare it nationwide, that's higher than 90% of the other counties in the nation. So we've got to do a better job of our tax money. We've got to realign it. We've got to look for waste and reevaluate that. The minimum foundation will bring into here one example that people have talked about with the school board. School board is required to keep an emergency contingency fund. $25 million is what they are required to keep in there. Last I heard, which was about several months ago, they had $65 million in that fund. Well, why can't you take some of that money out and use that towards getting teachers a pay raise and stuff? Match that with something else with the minimum foundation fund. Find ways to do that. One thing I mentioned earlier, with the budget surplus and stuff and all, we ought to be able to do a stipend for the teachers at least yearly and make that permanent and stuff. Is possibly even some kind of a supplemental pay raise or something. Want to look at that as well on that. We've got areas, again, I said I'm not a woke person. I agree with what was said before. Girls softball is for girls softball. Guys football is for guys football. I don't want my daughters having to worry about what restroom they go into and what's in that restroom. I am a firm believer in the Second Amendment. I do have a concealed carry permit. I am for open carry, and I will defend our Second Amendments. I'm not giving up the first one of my pistols or rifles or whatever on that. So
Well, thank you, sir. If we appreciate you taking the time, and congratulations on your engagement, and thank you for your service.
Well, thank you.
If you'd like to tell everybody where they can get in touch with you, where they can find out more about you.
Okay. Got a website. It's my name, all one word, Jim Norred, the number 4, staterep.com. My personal cell phone, 225-933-8855. Love to hear from y'all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And John, if you want to take the stage.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Thanks to the candidates. Thanks for everybody sticking around for this long evening. Thanks to Livingston Parish News, Mr. McHugh David, for all the thoughtful questions. We really appreciate it. Our next event's going to be coming up on the 16th. We're going to have candidates for District 95, Parish Council 3, and Bessie 6. So we should have a good slate coming up, and then we'll have 2 more coming up after that as well. So thank you guys for coming. We really appreciate it.